Welcome to the first ever episode of Talking to Teachers, presented by the CBA Digital Network. I'm your host, but not always going to be your host because we're going to have a rotation of students interviewing teachers. I'm Chris Height here with Mr. Ciro Saverino, also known as Senor Sav. Now, Senor, how you doing today? How are we feeling?
I'm great for Thursday. I'm looking forward to the weekend. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Oh, absolutely. Especially on this first episode. I feel like we definitely have had like a great relationship through like service and stuff like that throughout since freshman year, ever since I had you as Spanish 1.
I'm honored, Chris, to work with you this afternoon. And yes,
All
thanks for
right.
having me.
All right. So the way that we kind of want to have this podcast work, just for a general overview for the first episode of how we're going to do it. So the idea is for this podcast that we're going to, a student's going to interview a teacher on what they would like to talk about outside of school. That way we can get to know teachers a little better. So Senor Sav decided to choose his favorite job and what he learned from it. So Senor, take it away. What was your favorite job? Your first job? What was your first job, and what lessons did you take away from it?
Okay, yeah. So first job. I feel like I had a couple jobs simultaneously. So I'm gonna have to choose one. Choose one. Okay, so I think I'm gonna have to go with the McDonald's job. My dad, why was it my favorite? I probably have to go with my boss manager, Mr. John Eisman. I think that was his name. I don't have all the details remembered. They're going to be a little blurry, a little fuzzy, but McDonald's, I had to wear a uniform. It was kind of like CBA. I had to wear a uniform. I remember I wore my CBA clothes, my khaki pants, my blue button-down shirt, and a tie to the interview. My dad brought me there over in Marlboro. I remember being a little intimidated by some of my colleagues, these older, guys and girls that were, were, showing me the ropes, but making sure that, I learned the company way, the McDonald's way. Um, uh, they were kind of they were bullying me a little bit, but, making sure that I did things a certain way, and I came to respect them a lot. That I had to rise to their standards on the shift. I remember a couple memories stand out to me. This guy Sal De Palma, and working with him, he was training me how to clean the drink machines with the sanitizers, and there was a lot of cleaning done at McDonald's. So if you don't want to clean, you don't want to work at McDonald's. There's a lot of cleaning to be done. We had fun too, but it was hard work. And the shifts went quick. It was a 5-hour shift, but it flew by because we were always busy. And if I wasn't, stocking the shelves or working at the counter, through a busy dinner shift, I learned a lot. I learned how to clean. I learned how to sweep. I learned how to mop. I learned how to, scrub the walls. They made me scrub the walls. I can't believe I didn't know you had to scrub a wall, but
Neither did I.
there's like residual like grease that like goes onto the wall. Like if you watch those shows like Restaurant Impossible on the Food Network.
Oh yeah.
And then while we're cleaning during the day, at night, the night shift has to do a even deeper clean. Like you don't see it, but if you go to a 24-hour McDonald's, there's chemicals all over the floor, and then they clean the place top down to make that place sanitary and fit for guests. It's actually easier if the restaurant isn't 24 operational 24 hours a day, because then you can clean it as you should. But if you got food going out 24 hours a day on a busy highway like Route 9, where people are going down Atlantic City all the time, or New York City, it's hard to keep the restaurant as clean as it should be. What made it my favorite job? I don't know, or not, definitely not my favorite, but it was one of my first, and I learned how to speak a lot of Spanish. It was very practical. I looked up to my boss. He he was a white guy like me, but he ran a really, really good shift. He he had to manage. He taught me how to manage people. He taught me how to, showed me how to respect people. He showed me how to work under pressure. If there was a fire, not a literal fire, but if the system went down, he would jump in and help, all hands on deck. The guy could count money like nobody.
Hmm.
When he used to use the cash tills, he was so impressive. I wanted to be just like John. And if I ever saw him again, I would shake his hand and say, "Thank you, John, for all the lessons. I respect you so much. We all respected you. You weren't just the boss man. We all looked up to you, and we wanted, everybody wanted to make John proud, and yeah, I just really looked up to him."
Yeah, I've only had one job in my life working at Flynn and O'Hara. So you're at St. Ben's right now. So obviously with the uniforms and all that stuff. But I always kind of looked up to my boss. I've also looked up to my brother, who was always he wasn't higher up than me, but he was always kind of like, he always knew a lot, had a lot more wisdom than I did in the Flynn and O'Hara industry, which also surprisingly involves a lot of cleaning, like you just mentioned. But I have to ask, what message do you have? Because I obviously said there's some parents listening that can probably relate to you, but to the students, like the younger guys, the freshmen, the sophomores, and even guys like me, juniors and seniors, what message do you have to them about like jobs and like even just hard working?
I would say the message would be, I recently came across a quote the other day. St. Augustine said the three most important quotes are humility, humility, and humility. That job taught me humility. I worked with people that were immigrants. Let's be real. There's a lot of immigrants in this in New Jersey, New York, and here I was, a 17-year-old kid, 18 years old, working 5 hours a day, and my colleagues that were immigrants that spoke Spanish, and I would speak a little Spanish with them, and I had a car, and I would leave my shift, and I would see them. They would walk to the bus stop, and they would head up. They would get on the bus, and then there was this other girl. She was like 18 years old, and she would leave McDonald's, and then she would go work at Dunkin' Donuts.
Hmm.
And I'm like, "Don't you go to school?" She goes, "Yeah, I just graduated high school, and now I work at McDonald's and Dunkin' Donuts." And then one day, it dawned on me that the other woman that looked just like her was her mother. So she worked right alongside her mother at McDonald's. And I don't know if the mom also worked at, I forget her name, but that her mom also worked at McDonald's. So she was working right alongside her mom at McDonald's. So that was very, very humbling. And it taught me to respect people, taught me to, I remember one night, my family remember this story. There was a snowstorm, and my boss John called me and said, "Cyril, can you come in and work a shift? Maria is pregnant, and we need you to come in and cover her shift." And I empathize with her plight, with her situation. It's a business. It's a human. We need to take care of each other. We need to cover each other's shifts. We need to be able to connect with people and help each other. I work with people all walks of life, people with drug problems, alcoholism. It was very, very humbling. Cleaning, working with the public. There was times where there would be a customer come in, and I say, "I dealt with this guy last time. I need to go take a walk in the back. I didn't have a really good experience with him last time. Hey, John, you need to take this customer. It's in my best interest." So I'm so glad I worked there for 5 years, high school and then into college. Really, really set me up, taught me a lot of lessons. So humility and learning how to connect with people and walk a mile in their shoe, and being able to empathize with people.
Yeah, absolutely. That's even, not to get so much back to the school, but that's like some of the core values that like CBA is like, what we're taught, the retreats, which I love. A lot of kids don't maybe like retreats as much as I do, but I definitely feel like it's a great thing to get away and like and reevaluate like what's going on. But dude, that's a side note. But I really, those are like the core values of CBA, and you don't just learn those in the classroom. You learn them at your jobs, and from experience. It seems like, I mean, I'm sure you've had a lot more experiences. Obviously, you've had a lot more experiences than I have. I'm only 16 years old, but yeah, I feel like. Could you agree with me on the fact that you learn so much, not only from like work experience, but just in general from life? You learn a lot that what CBA teaches you.
Absolutely. Work is dignified. Work is important. Work is very, very important to people. Everybody needs to work. Young people, young men, young boys. When I was in high school, I was not just working at McDonald's. I would work all day at the camp. I was a junior counselor / lifeguard. I learned how to guard a pool. And if there was an emergency, I would have to jump in and save a kid that was, drowning. And I was learning how to teach swim lessons. All these lessons you don't learn in the classroom. So you're so right. There are things to be learned outside the classroom, and young people should have jobs. If parents are listening, multiple jobs. I worked a double shift in high school. I worked at Country Roads Day Camp in Manalapan. And then they set you up for job references down the road. I learned so many jobs, or so many lessons, especially work ethic. And yes, you're so right, Chris. You learn values in the classroom and outside the classroom, and they're cross curricular. They support one another for sure.
Mm-hmm. Well, Senor, before we wrap it up here for our inaugural episode of Talking to Teachers, anything else you'd like to tell, the CBA community, even especially the students that are gonna listen to this? Anything like final thoughts on the conversation we've had?
I was really nervous to come on. I really was. I've never done a podcast, so this is another experience. Stretch yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Stretch yourself. I always did that as a CBA student, and that's what you do, Chris. You're constantly doing new things. I see a lot of myself in you. I'm so proud of you. I always have been.
Thank you.
Stretch yourself, young men. I was very nervous to come on here and do this. I'm not comfortable being recorded, but prepare. Put yourself out there. Try new things. Thank you so much for having me on, Chris.
Of course, Senor, it was just like a hallway conversation. We have them every day. I see you in the hallway, I give you a wave. It's the same thing, and I really thank you for coming on for this first episode. There's no one better I could have thought of for the first episode, because I knew you had a great message for all of the CBA students, and me, of course, me too. But I knew you'd have just a fantastic message for all of us.
Thank you so much, Chris. I hope everything turns out good. Thank you. See you in the halls, buddy.
All right, Senor, I will see you later. Good to see you. So that wraps up our first episode here at Talking to Teachers. I'm Chris Height with Senor Sav, wrapping it up. That's all for now. We'll see you next time.